right, gang. Welcome back to another installment of the Strange Saturday Super Show. It is my month to pick the book, and
Yes.
I picked one that I actually haven't. I'm gonna say I haven't read before. The book is Hack Slash. We're looking at the first three one shots from the DDP run, uh,
Yes.
and I have not read those. I have read Zoe Thorogood's Hack Slash Back to School, which is an origin story for a main character. But this is the first like proper Hack Slash that I am jumping into, and it's going to be three one shots. So we're going to kind of run through them individually just because they are disconnected.
Yeah.
It's the same characters, but the plots are completely different. And we are going to start off with the first one shot put out, which is Euthanized. The writer on this is Tim Seeley. The penciler is Stefano Caselli. The colorist is Sundar Raj. The letters are Marshall Dillon. And graphic design is Mike Norton. A throwback to Jay enjoying talking about who did logo design for things. Um, Truly a
I don't
throwback.
remember when that was. Long time ago. But
It might have. I also don't remember. Never
I think
mind.
it was a Strange Saturday. Was it a Strange
It
Saturday
might have been.
Super
Was
Show?
it? In any case, this
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
one shot is the story of Cassie Hack, a slasher hacker, a slasher killer, and her beloved friend. I love this man so much. I made a whole Instagram post about how much I loved him when I was reading Back to School, and I have immediately blanked on his name like an
Vlad.
absolute
It's Vlad,
fool.
if that's what
Vlad, it
it's
is
Vlad.
Vlad. I literally made a stupid edit of Vlad in Canva surrounded by like hearts and sparkles because I love him so much. And I have forgotten his name like a fake fan. Cassie and Vlad follow a lead to a small town where these animals are going wild. This is a world where slashers exist. Think of them kind of like supernatural creatures, kind of like vampires or werewolves, but they are brought back from the dead by their deep hatred and become the slashers that we see in fiction. You know, Jason with the hockey mask,
Michael
and
Myers.
Mike Myers with the flesh mask. Um, can you tell I don't watch a lot of horror movies?
Chucky. There's
I'm sure
more.
the one from I Know What You Did Last Summer. There's Freddy Krueger. He's possibly a
Yep.
slasher. Again,
Yep.
don't watch a lot of horror movies. But that's why I hadn't read Hack Slash yet, because I was like, this is based on things that I don't know anything about. I probably won't enjoy it, but plot twist, I actually like these a lot. I'm excited
Yeah.
to dive into it. But yeah, we see Cassie and Vlad take on a slasher that is resurrected in this town. He used to euthanize animals, and now he is going after the men who killed him. Uh, and it's wacky. He doesn't care who he
They
kills
gassed him.
on his. Yeah, they gassed him the way that he gassed like euthanized pets.
Yeah, I
Which
don't think they gassed pets, by the way, which was a wild thing. I was just like,
I have
why do they
literally
have a
no
gas
idea, and
syndrome?
I don't want to know.
I'm
I
pretty sure
was
it's
one of those
lethal
kids who was
injection.
like, when I grow up, I want to be a veterinarian. But then when I was in high school, I was like, I don't know if I want to be a veterinarian. Like, it wasn't a lifelong
Yeah.
dream, but it was like, that was one of the things that I thought I wanted to be. And then I was like, you know what I need to do? I need to Google one video of doing surgery on a dog, because that will be like an important part of being a vet. And I was like, nope, I'm not going to do that, actually. So I never looked into how you actually euthanize them.
Yeah, I
Because
don't
even
think they
just doing
gas
surgery was too
animals.
much. But in any case, he was killed in
Yeah,
with this gas.
I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm going to let you run through it now.
No, you're good.
Spend forever on these
He
summaries.
comes back, as seems to be the case. Cassie and Vlad try to convince people that they are here to help, but they look funky because it's a goth and a mountain. And they are, in fact, right in the end. And they do help take down Bobby. Buddy? Bobby. The slasher.
Bobby.
Jay.
Bobby.
Jay, how did you feel about this first issue of Hack slash.
Yeah, I had no idea what to expect. I asked because Katie brought it up. Katie first brought up another book that I think
Mm-hmm.
we'll probably do for like a back issue review at some point because it's a book we've both been intending to read for a
Yeah.
while.
And I
And
had
I
only
went,
seen
I
a
don't
few
think that's
panels from
strange
it,
enough.
and I was like, "Is this
I've read an
strange?"
issue. Yeah, I've read an issue, and I didn't think it was in the spirit, so I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we should do that. And then she threw this at me, and I went, well, I have no context. I have no idea what this is about. And then Katie was like, okay, let me try to tell you what it's about. She's like, I'm struggling, and it was like, okay, if you're struggling to say what it's about, it probably qualifies. So I went in with no summaries, no any like I had no idea what I was about to read, which made the first couple pages of this book extra cool because I didn't know
Hell
kind of
yeah.
what to expect. So that like little twist of like, oh no,
Do you want to
she
tell us what the twist is?
yeah, so like she's dressed up as a cheerleader at a camp where this guy leads out cheerleaders and kills them. And like there was indications that she knew what he was doing because she was like, "Ah, no, I won't be scared. You're leading me out here alone." And I was like, "Okay, so she kind of knows what's going on." Um but like I was unsure if like she was meant to be bait and she was so but then like out pops Vlad and kills him and it's very cool. And so that kind of hooked me and I was like this is and it was it's a phenomenal concept with really cool stuff. I like the art throughout. This is the artist on this book. I'm not remembering
Mm-hmm.
the name on the first one shot. I think is my favorite. I really did like the art in this one shot quite a bit.
Yeah, that's
I thought it worked
Stefano
so
Caselli.
well for Vlad. And is her name Cassie? Is that her name?
Cassie Hack.
Yeah. Vlad and Cassie, I thought both had such good looks to them, as did the slasher villain Bobby. I was like the designs here are awesome. The look is awesome. The story's really good. Um, I it's between this and the third one for my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But I really did like the first story. I thought it was a great introduction to these characters, to what they want, what they need. It's just a really really cool book. It's a weird book, but it's a really really cool book, and I'm here.
And
They've pulled
really,
me
really
in.
well
So
done. In kind of like an anti-Battle Pope way, I feel that it is also my responsibility to point out that uh, Cassie Hack is a take on the final girl, which is, a trope in horror fiction where like one kind of pure woman is left alive to like survive and go off. And she is very much like the final girl is fighting back. Like she is killing these slashers that are like, typically going to be overpowering women
yeah,
and stuff like that. Like she is uh very much like a feminist figure in that she is subverting this trope.
though
And
I will
I think
also and maybe you'll push back on me for this, but I want to say I think she's a subversion of the strong female lead too, which I really
that too,
like.
yeah, yeah.
Because she is like a
She
pushback on like the I can't be vulnerable. I can't want to be a vulnerable woman with a man at some point. Like she because she does not in this. You don't see that in this book, so maybe leave that a little bit for that. But you start to see that she does kind of have a desire to be a more normal
mhm.
teen and to have relationships and that kind of stuff. So she's
Yeah,
just
no.
subverting all over the
She's
place,
so
which makes her a
rad.
very interesting main character.
Like I wasn't sure what to expect because the again, Zoe Thorogood is the one who did Hack Slash Back to School, and like obviously it's hard to tell one how a man is going to write a woman. Like I trust Tim Seeley as a writer. I like his work. But two, especially 20 years ago, because these came out in 2004. Maybe this is a 20-year anniversary of Hack Slash, and it's so well done, and it feels so good because it's not like preachy well done the way that it can be sometimes. She just gets to exist as a like complicated but also badass female character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's a very very well done character, as well are most of the. Well, we get two like real characters, and then we get the characters that pass through,
Yeah.
which is really cool, and I enjoyed a lot of it, and it's very fun. It's fun is a
Yeah,
weird
it
word to use
is
for
wacky
essentially a
though,
slasher book, but yeah,
because we have that little cheerleader kind of twist, and then that's kind of like the cold open, and then we get a little bit of Cassie's backstory with her mom becoming a slasher, and then we jump into the bulk of the issue, which is this animal shelter plot line, and there is so many weird wacky animals doing weird wacky things. Like we see a cat burst out of a snake's mouth to kill a man. The the actual figure of the slasher
Was it a
is so,
cat that came from wasn't it a rat that came from
maybe
the
a
snake's
rat,
mouth?
maybe a rat. Anyway, a
Because that
creepy
makes,
creature. That makes much
more
more sense.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
this creepy creature comes bursting out. It's so well done and so cool and so like so freaky. Like
yeah,
it uses the language of horror without
yeah,
being horrifying, which I really appreciate as someone who is a total wimp. Um, and I think that it does such a good
yeah,
job of immediately, introducing us to who Cassie and Vlad are. Like, Vlad is such a good boy. For the entirety of these books, he is giggling, maybe less so in the third one actually, but he is giggling about the phrase heebie jeebies. And it's so cute and endearing because he is this mountain of a man. He looks like a freak. Like he's got
he
green
looks like a
skin.
slasher. Like that's the
He
whole
looks like a
vibe. Is
slasher.
she
Yeah.
met him because they thought he was a slasher, and she went, and then he wasn't a slasher, and she was like, "Oh, okay."
And now they're best friends. Uh and it's so great. He is just such a wonderful lad. Every time he speaks, I am giggling or, feeling emotions. And he's wonderful. And I think that
Yeah,
their dynamic is throughout these three issues, to jump ahead a little bit, is really what drives so much of the story in this. Like, there's obviously the plot
agreed.
of the various slasher things, but as
Yeah,
with anything that's kind of serialized, what you're coming back for is the characters who are going on these adventures. And I feel like
yeah,
from the
absolutely.
first beat with Cassie and Vlad, I'm on board with their friendship and excited by their interactions.
Yeah, and the kind of like I feel like I really enjoyed the first one because it is like the establishment, all this, the actual like slasher story works really well. It's so much of just playing into those horror tropes and twisting them because
Hmm.
that I feel like it's the least ripe for discussion out of the three stories.
That is
So
super
do we
fair.
want to move forward? Because I
I
think there's
was
a
I was
lot
about
more
to
to break
suggest that
down
we move
in the
forward.
next two
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah, so the next one is called Girls Gone Dead. The penciler, writer is still Tim Seeley. The penciler is Federica Manfredi. The colorist is Dave Amici with Fabio Mantini. Uh, there he is. The letters are Marshall Dillon again. Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, in this one, Cassie and Vlad have traveled to a spring breaking location because slashers, as is a bit of a joke about like the meta, the kind of history of slashers. It's like, oh yeah, they're gonna go where kids are engaging in, I don't know, sex and rock and roll and drugs and stuff because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
when people always get killed in like horror movies. So
yeah,
we see them helping out in this spring break place. There's a slasher on the loose who seems to be going after these fornicators. And we get to see a little bit of investigation from them actually this time, which is exciting because we don't see as much of that in the first issue. Uh, Cassie figures out that a slasher would be making a mess of their room, but would probably stay in a hotel room because everywhere else is beach. And so she uses her charm, I think she says, probably sarcastically, to figure out rooms that were like kind of listed like do not clean, essentially do not disturb rooms. And she breaks into a bunch of them and finally finds the room where the slasher is. We find out this slasher cannot like move on its own. It's under the control of this woman who is using like radicalized beliefs to uh, murder people, which is less than ideal. Cassie gets into a scrap with this woman and then figures out that she's probably going to be targeting what is essentially, the Girls Gone Wild house. I think it's Girls
yeah,
Gone Naughty in this. And so she and Vlad go to stake out that house so they can stop the slasher. But Cassie ends up getting a little smashed. Somebody gives her alcohol when she specifically said she didn't want alcohol. And this is where we see her really engaging in that, like, kind of wishing she was a regular kid because
yeah,
she doesn't have to be worried about all of these other things right now, all of these things that have made her kind of weird. She's just kind of fitting in and having a good time. And it's really neat to see because this obviously corresponds with the main antagonist locking the house and unleashing the slasher on everyone. So Cassie is not only fighting in an altered state, but she's also, kind of trying to save people while also taking this woman out. And Vlad is, of course, doing his thing, being a good boy, taking out the slasher himself. And we get a really rad, like, kind of coinciding fight scenes. I'm such a fan of that when we have two different fights happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Naturally, they take the slasher out and save most people. Cassie, badass as hell. The baddie had gotten alcohol all over her from their fight in the bar, and Cassie fucking throws a candle at her and it lights up, and it's fucking prime. And then they walk off into the sunset, realizing that they are best friends forever, because they are. How'd you feel about this one? You mentioned it is your least favorite.
I'm gonna throw a couple arguments there. Firstly, they don't really
Sure.
walk off into the sunset. Vlad saves her when she's like about to die, and he carries her off because she like lights the entire thing on fire and then like smoke and stuff. But he's like a slasher, and he always wears a gas mask, so he's able to like go through this thing. And then the other thing is like the motivations of the girl were a little bit more interesting. This like she essentially had a guy cheat on her, but she didn't want to have sex until marriage, and so she is obsessed with like essentially proving him wrong and like convincing him and people that sex before marriage will like be awful. So that's like that's like her motivation, which is kind of a weird form of twisted. This was my least favorite story out of the three, mainly because I thought the slasher villain was the most lame out of the three.
Yeah.
Like I found her more interesting than the actual
wasn't really the villain.
Slasher, yeah. The slasher, like I'm also just like obviously this was 20 years ago. I'm so tired of the like homophobic priest is actually a gay man thing. I'm like, that is just done to death.
Which is fair. So, I will give it props for being 20 years ago, though.
Yeah. Again, it's very much in the context of when I'm reading it, not an indictment on it.
No, for sure.
So that's why this is my least favorite, just because the slasher villain was the least interesting to me out of the three. But it's still a good story. It's still good. Like there was no part of this book that like when reading three stories that I was like, this story was bad and I couldn't wait to get. Like this was still good. This was still interesting. It is the first like bit of seeing Cassie's characterization kind of flip a little bit and start being interested. Vlad gets a lot to do kind of in this one because he is kind of separated from her for more of it, and that's cool, and he gets to kind of be the hero in this one.
It's great.
Yeah.
He can't walk in it.
No. But I'm trying to think of like the investigation that you mentioned in this issue is I think the like strongest point of this issue compared to the other two. Like it has the best kind of like investigation, them looking into things. Like it's the most kind of like it's the least just Cassie being like, I have a feeling and I know slashers, and the most of like actually looking into things and figuring out what's going on. The like her getting locked in the closet and then turning around and like the slasher being there,
it was
and
so
her freaking out, but then realizing he's not moving, and so her getting like increasingly boldened to like do stupid shit in front of the slasher. It's just a really, really good moment and a good sequence as a whole. I was reading these so slow. I don't know how long each of these one shots are, or if they're even the same length. But
I think they're 40 to 48 pages each.
Okay. So so that got a decent amount of time, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
So like that got to like stretch out, and a lot of moments got to stretch out, which really made it feel nice. Like nothing ever felt rushed in this book, which was great.
No.
But yeah, I liked. I think this was I liked Cassie and Vlad a lot in this. I was the least interested in like the surrounding case, despite it being
that's fair.
Like one of their more interactions with the case, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm word vomiting on you.
No, I embrace the word vomit. To kind of speak on the characterization of Cassie and Vlad in this issue specifically. Like, I think this is, like you said, definitely the best one for them because they get to do a lot more, like, kind of vulnerable stuff.
Yeah.
The ending of the issue, after Vlad is saved her and she kind of wakes up and has a shitty hangover, they have this, like, really vulnerable conversation, and it made me, like, very emotional. Like, what's Vlad's line here? Sometimes it's good for people to like us, even if we're hiding our true face with a mask, because, he's literally always hiding his face with a mask.
Yeah, and she's hiding hers behind her, like, I just want to kill slashers, I'm super tough, Because she just went on a speech about, like, I was, like, letting loose, but, like, people liked her, and people don't like the real me. And like, or like,
they wouldn't
not
like
the, real
the
me,
slasher Cassie. They would like, I'm sorry, that hackers.
Yeah. And because we
Cassie.
do, like, in most places we go, we do see people like the cops or the investigators or the people who's just trying to help. Be like, no, you're weird. You're like dressed like this crazy goth girl. And you're walking around with a monster. Like,
Yeah,
you're weird.
they don't like her. And that's also the
Until the next
motive
issue.
for her mother killing people because her mother was
Yeah.
a slasher.
Yeah.
She baked kids into their school lunches. um,
Yeah.
but I think that this leads us into the next issue, unless you have more to say about
No, I think we
Girls
covered
Gone
it. I'm
Dead.
very excited to talk about comic book Carnage. So
Yeah. So Comic Book Carnage is, I read these first two and I'm like, okay, it's weird kind of conceptually, but I feel like it hasn't like hit what I feel like could really justify it being a strange Saturday Super Show.
we hit it.
For some reason, it seems that a commonality in our strange Saturday Super Show are characters going to comic conventions. Because in
Yeah.
Comic Book Carnage, the writer is again Tim Seeley. The penciler is Federica Manfred. The colorist
It's I think
is
the same team as the last
I
one.
think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
David My, and the letters are Marshall Dillon.
Yep. So yeah, same team carrying over into this one.
So this one's
Do you want
weird.
to run down?
I can certainly run this down. Cassie and Vlad have gone to well they go to a convention once a kill happens there.
Yeah.
Wizard World Philadelphia is happening, and includes guests such as Scotty Young, Steve Niles, Messy Stench, and Robert Kirkman. So all of these are real people.
So
And
funny.
the kind of inciting incident is that their production company has revamped an old property called Wonderkind, and they have changed it a little bit, believe it or not, when it's been brought back. And we see that there's some very angry people, and our first kill is a nod to Psycho, where Niles is killed in the shower. And that, of course, brings Cassie and Vlad to the scene, because they're like, oh, there's murders happening, and we are almost out of money, so let's boogie. We get to see them wandering around the con, which is very cute and wonderful. Vlad loves a comic called Chippy Chipmunk, because that's how he learned to read. And again, I cried.
This is I'm gonna put it. I think this is actually for Vlad. I think this is the best characterization issue. Vlad gets a lot in this issue, and he becomes like best friends with Robert Kirkman right before Robert Kirkman dies, which is
Rip
so
Robert
funny.
Kirkman. I am so delighted by this because it really feels like the comic book community, you know. But they are like, hey, Scotty Young, Scotty Young himself, slashers are a thing, and you're all in danger. And naturally, they're like, stop that, go away. They make a little joke about her cosplaying as Death from Sandman, which I thought was funny. Robert Kirkman is very nice to Vlad, and it's great. Lo and behold, a second one is killed, and they are like, slashers are happening, please. And then Robert Kirkman is killed right after that. And finally, Scotty Young listens to Cassie and Vlad and lets them use him as bait so that they can catch the slasher. They end up, the bait works more or less, only after Cassie tries to put the moves on Scotty.
Another little kind of moment there of like us seeing her like issue with people not liking her, because she like admits that like, yes, that was a thing that usually would draw out a slasher, but also she's upset that he dislikes her so much, and she was like, that might help.
It was a little bit painful, like in a good way, in like
it's not like secondhand cringe where you're like,
it's like, oh, she just took off her shirt, put on a blonde wig, and tried to kiss Scotty Young, and he rejected her, and she like kind of covers herself with her jacket, and it's like, oh no, oh Cassie,
and the way they did like the wig like kind of slowly falling off through different panels, I was like, that's such a good like comic book effect, like something you do in the comic book medium.
Oh my god, I'm like cringing internally just looking at it, so I'm gonna keep scrolling. But lo and behold, it lures the slasher out, who it turns out is a man who is angry about the changes being made to Wonderkind. And so he's trying to kill the entire creative team at the behest of his brother.
Yeah.
Uh, Jay, would you like to explain his brother?
Yeah, his brother's the actual slasher because he's
Yes.
a man. His brother is
Except
the
not.
slasher.
I believe
Yeah,
that.
his brother's just like a real
I
fat
believe he
man.
became a slasher.
I think the slasher's the little weird baby.
I think. Well, there it is. His brother is a weird baby.
Who lives within his like fat rolls.
Yeah. I'm sorry, he's just peering out.
Yeah, and then tries to murder them with the guts of his brother once his brother dies.
Yeah.
And yeah.
He's thwarted by Vlad.
Yeah, Vlad kills him with an action figure.
He kills him real dead.
Yeah, with
and
Wonder Kid.
He's like so angry, and it's like clearly that anger is coming from somewhere else as well.
He tells him he's been a bad boy and needs a spanking, and then really thoroughly spanks him with this action figure.
And he claims that it's for the people he killed, but also his acorns, because he's a good boy. And then Cassie and Vlad manage to escape before the cops come, leaving poor Scotty Young to explain to the cops why there's a dead man and a weird smushed baby. And then Cassie and Vlad have like a really nice conversation again, and it's so nice, and they're so vulnerable together, and they are best friends forever.
I want to point out another great like insight into Cassie's character is when Scotty Young like hugs her for saving him. Mm-hmm. She like pushes him away and goes like, "You have a girlfriend, don't you remember?" And like kind of skulks away, and like there's the fantastic panel at the end of that page where you can just see like the hurt in her face.
Yeah, and that's like, the thing. Is I feel like because her line before that, she pushes him away and says, "Hold on there, cowboy," and it like could build into a joke, like a kind of nod and wink, "You have a girlfriend, remember?" But no, she's like, you can see her kind of slouched down. She's got very clear emotions on her face, and it's so effective.
Great art.
And she's like, "You've got a girlfriend, remember?" It's so well done. Yeah. Cassie is just so cool.
The like it's just again like. As we learn more about Vlad and Cassie and they become these real three-dimensional characters, and I think like I do think this is my favorite. It's very close between this and the first one, because the first one's my favorite like actual slasher villain and slasher origin, but this is I think just the best for the characters and the actual story and everything, and it's at a comic book convention and there's real comic book creators in it. It's so wacky and so fun. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of really like where the art and the writing just work in such great tandem to teach us about who these characters really are and like what's going on. So it's got depth for a hokey weird slasher parody book. It has a lot of depth to it, which is nice. Yeah,
and I think it was really interesting at C2E2 a couple weeks ago or a week ago, whatever it was. I went to a panel that Tim Seeley was on, and the moderator asked about getting their start in comic books, and Tim Seeley was like, "Yeah, I was doing hack slash, and like nobody respected it. So then I did a very, I did a very serious book with Revival, and I'm like, hack slash is serious. Like it doesn't seem like it is, but it's like
It's
they're very
like, it's
weird.
Earnest, not serious. If that makes sense,
that's fair.
You know,
that's
like
fair.
Because it's hokey, it's crazy, it's weird, but it has heart and it has like
and it's so. It was so much better than I was expecting, because partially because of that comment, I was like, oh, maybe it will just be kind of gratuitous violence and boobs. But it's not. It isn't even really that violent. Like, it has kills, obviously, that happen. But
they can get fairly violent.
That's fair. Like, the baby is
splatted. Like pulling out guts to try to choke Cassie. There's little babies pulling out guts to try to choke
the baby
Cassie
is so freaky. I'm sorry. We just need to... So the baby...
Yeah. There's a word for like and I can't think of what it's called.
He looks like a little homunculus.
Stomach baby. No, there's like a stomach word for... Yeah, I think there's a thing that's like that, because Rick and Morty recently did a parody of whatever the original thing is too, and they kept calling it whatever it is.
It looks like the baby from I think it was a movie called like Milk or something, and it was a baby with teeth, and it was like murdering people. It might not have been called Milk. The only scene I can remember from it is the baby attacking a milkman, and then milk bottles falling out of the back of his truck and like dripping out, and then blood mixing in it. Uh, Again, I don't watch a lot of horror movies. It scares me. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's so well done. It's like we talked about with this week's creator corner. It feels like it comes from a place of real like love and admiration for the slasher genre because it's pulling all these tropes and using them effectively, but also subverting them and commenting on them. And I just think it's really
Yeah.
neat. And I God damn it, I keep scrolling and seeing the baby. He's got like razor sharp teeth, glowing
Quado.
green eyes, and little claws. What's it called?
Quado from Total Recall. Quado.
Horrifying.
But like the like baby's like attached, can't actually like, fully come
Mm.
out, but it's like in his stomach.
Yeah, no, this
And that's
baby is fully detachable.
it's a
RC
detachable
baby.
baby. It's a feature. It's a nice feature.
It is. It's a nice fetus feature.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, this issue was just it's so good because it is both so funny and so weird and so good.
Yeah.
And I am fully prepared to just dive into Hack Slash now. I'm very excited
Me too.
to
It's all in global comics, which is awesome. Justifying that membership more and more, and I'm
yeah.
fully planning on just continuing to read it on there because it was really good, and I'm
Yeah.
invested in the characters. I don't know if there's any sort of like long term character arcs, but it feels like we're starting like a character arc. So I'm
Mhm.
interested to see if it
At the very least, we
continues.
have the grounds for a slow character arc.
Yeah, so
Like it could
I'm
be a quick one,
hoping.
but it feels like a slow one.
Yeah, I agree,
And
and
it's
I'm hoping to
run
see like
on
that
and off
spike.
for like this full 20 years. Like
I think there was
Hack
a
Slash
big
Back to
gap
School.
initially. Like I think there's a big
Yeah.
gap in there before it like came back.
Mhm.
Like I think it's been going for like a solid like 8 years now, and I think it went for like a solid like 5 or something. But I think there was like 10 years of a gap in there
That
somewhere.
tracks.
But yeah,
But like
but
Back to
there's
School
there's a lot.
literally was
Is the
just
point?
coming out last year. There
Yeah,
is a new Hack Slash series coming out right now. Like
yeah,
it's very much alive and well, which is so rad to see.
awesome.
We love just series with staying power.
Yeah,
Even
especially
if they
when
have
it's like
to,
I
make the
know
comeback.
that now it looks like they're doing like mini series is what I think is
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
current release strategy. But for a while, it seems like it was just, like one shots. And each one was like a different, like episode or whatever, which is
No, and that's the thing.
really
It works
cool
so
because I was
well.
actually like thinking about that for like a method of comic book releasing of like what if you did characters and everything's been done, so clearly has been done here. I was like, and you
Yeah,
like instead of numbering issues you just did like you know titles of each issue, and they were each like a one shot with like a different story but with the same characters, like television episodes. I was like, that
exactly.
feels
Like
like it'd
this
be a good
felt
way to
like
retain
the
viewership.
start of a police serial, essentially. Like it felt like
Yeah,
Criminal Minds.
so then like this kind of was like, oh yeah, this is that format, and it does work really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to see that is a thing. I'm curious as to why more things don't do it, because it seems like a good way to not have like issue drop offs. It's like,
Mhm.
no, it's just another one shot and another one shot and another one shot. Maybe
It
that
also
also
feels like
means
a
that people don't put on their
really
pull list or whatever. But
maybe,
you know,
but it feels like a really good way of doing like Kickstarter books where you don't necessarily need the previous books to read these ones, and also you're not waiting for the story to complete over a number of
yeah,
months or years in many cases. Like you get your complete story, and then you do get to keep making the story.
yeah. No, that's a good call too. Like I don't know if there's a format that wouldn't be good for this, because like in stores you won't see issue drop offs, and Kickstarter you don't have to worry about later Kickstarters not being as accessible. Like it just feels like a good format. Like the thing is then that like could you do 24 one shots? Sure, but it's hard. So like I understand like maybe it's the thing of like 48-page stories are a little bit harder to
Hmm.
make just initially, so maybe that's it. But yeah, I'm happy to see it here, and though it doesn't seem like that's the format forever, I'm excited for the amount that this will be the format as
Yes.
I read forward. But is there anything else you want to hit on here, Katie?
Oh, geez, I don't think so. I really enjoyed this, and as much as I do think it fits
Yeah,
the bill for a Strange Saturday Super Show, it reminds me a little bit of In Hell We Fight in terms of like the show, where like it's a bit weird, but it is just a good book.
yeah.
Like they're
This
just good comics.
now I think this is a little bit weirder than in Hell We Fight. I think in Hell We Fight's still the least weird Strange Saturday Super
That's
Show we've
fair.
done. This is a little bit more like in the like yeah, this is a kind of a wild concept, and then especially issue 3 is just a wild thing
Yeah.
to exist.
Here's the
But
thing:
yeah, no,
Cassie Hack meets the Latex Avenger at a convention. It's great.
I mean, they seem to have, I was looking at because I was reading these out of the big omnibus. There's like a Chucky crossover, right? Like that's kind of wild.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think Hack Slash has some real diehard fans. It's a long running
I mean,
thing.
to have this amount of staying power, like
Yeah.
I assume it's got some fans out there, and I can see why. So, yeah, no, it's just I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
where
just now
I
really salty because Tim Seeley was at CT2, obviously,
that you
and
didn't get him to sign something backslash.
that, but more so, he had Cassie action figures, and he like did like a very small batch of them, because these are like the first time that he's ever done action figures for Hack Slash. Like, oh man, I really wish I bought one now, because I love Cassie Hack.
You should have gotten it. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Maybe it'll be at Wizard World.
But yeah, like it's the last book in their first omnibus, so like fairly decently in, but not so deep in. Like they had done 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 13, 14. So 14. So if those are all one shots, like I think that's like 14 issues before they got a huge crossover. That's pretty
That's
fast.
pretty quick. Yeah,
that's pretty good. So
no,
yeah,
Backslash is great. Maybe we'll do more of it for a bonus episode at some point.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to reading more of this. I don't know if I'm gonna wait until we do a bonus. Maybe we'll do a bonus episode so for like a modern,
That's
like
what I was thinking, because I think both of us are gonna go and just read.
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna be something where, especially where we're gonna like wait. Like this isn't gonna be something like the Radiant Black Massiveverse where we're willing to wait. Which, by the way, coming later this month.
Yes,
Radiant Black.
Okay, the reading order is Radiant Black Volume 1, Radiant Black Volume 2 with Radiant Red mixed in there. And then I believe the next one, I just did a Massiveverse display in my workplace. And I specifically put them in the reading order. Next up is Inferno Girl Red. And then
Girl Red, right.
If we want to just tack it on, there's the Supermassive 2022, and then it'll be Rogue Sun Volume 1.
So yeah, we're going to be doing Inferno Girl Red. I think the last
it's only 3 issues though, so we'll probably do Supermassive as well.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing that the last weekend of this month, I believe. So
yeah,
if you're watching this right now, 2 weeks from when this came out. So yeah.
And if you want to go back and hear us talk about Radiant Black Volume 1, that's going to be in like episode 2 or 3 of the pod. And then we have a Radiant Red episode 1.
It's episode 1, yeah. Episode 0 was Noctara. Episode 1 is Radiant Black.
Wacky. Well, you can head back there, and then we have a bonus episode of Radiant Red.
Radiant Red, yeah. Did you ever read volume? Not to like get normal conversation in our episode. Did you ever read Volume 2 of Radiant Black?
I read the part of it that was essential before reading Radiant Red,
which was the first 3 issues, right?
Yeah, which is like half of it.
But you still haven't finished it.
I'm a serial not finisher of things.
Yeah. No,
anyway, if I don't finish it during when I'm sitting down reading it, it's probably never gonna happen.
Anyway, as we just start to fuck around here. This was very good.
Goof.
Yeah. But in any case, we have our normal episode coming up on Wednesday. We told you about the other bonus episodes. So yeah, as always, we'll see you next week. Comic Geeks.